Welcome back to the Million Dollar Landscaper Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Molchan, and today we're going to be diving into something that's very important, and it's probably on a lot of your guys' minds. It's how to figure out what you should be charging your clients, and more specifically, how much profit should you be making. Recently, I had a phone call with another landscaper who reached out saying something along the lines that you guys could probably relate to. They've been working long, crazy hours, days, nights, weekends, all that, and they're only making us so much money per year. And now for all that time and effort, they're starting to feel like this just isn't worth it. They also mentioned that they've been talking with some other landscapers, and some of them have been claiming that they've been charging 30% or even 50% profit for their jobs. And here's a kicker. They wanted the customer that reached out to me wanted to know if they should be charging more than the 15 to 20% profit that we or 15 to 20%. Well, I can talk there. 15 to 20% net profit we typically recommend for you. So today I wanted to kind of clear the air on this and kind of break down the differences between gross profit and net profit and make sure you guys have a better understanding so you're not just guessing on things based on what someone else says online. So first things first, let's talk about the gross profit versus net profit. These terms get thrown around quite a bit of time, and if you don't know the difference, you can easily start underpricing work or thinking you're making way more money than what you actually are. So here's the deal. Gross profit is your revenue, what you do in your sales. It could be 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, whatever, minus the cost of goods, which is your labor, your materials. It could be your equipment. That is what's going to be your gross profit. So let's break it down even smaller. Let's look at a job. Let's say you go do a job, you charge a customer $1,000 for the job. Your materials for your job cost materials and labor cost $500. We'll keep it simple here. So job is you're charging the customer $1,000. Your materials and labor cost you $500. That leaves you with $500. Boom, that's your gross profit. Now the net profit is what you have left over after all the other expenses, such as overhead, your taxes, if you have equipment in there, insurance, software, whatever it is. So if your overhead is $300 and you've got the $500 in gross profit, now you're down to $200. So we start off with $1,000. We're left with $500 after our materials and labor. And then we take another $300 off of that for overhead. And now we're down to $200 net profit. That is what you actually kind of get to take home. That's $200 all said and done. So again, it is very simple. So the 1,000 minus 500 leaves you 500 gross, minus the $300 in overhead. That leaves you with $200 net profit. So that's kind of an easier breakdown on this. So why does this matter? Well, when people start throwing out these numbers that, I'm charging 30 to 50% profit, more often than not, they're talking about that gross profit, not net. And trust me, these are two very, very different things. Now, next, let's talk a little bit why we typically recommend 15 to 20% net profit for your landscaping business. Now, obviously, that doesn't sound as flashy as the 30 to 50%, like I said, some other thing, but here's why it works. First, you have to take into account all the stuff that eats into your profit. You have your labor, your equipment, your overhead, and so on and so forth. And aiming for that 15 to 20% net profit means you have enough margin in the end to kind of cover everything, that you have enough money left over to, pay yourself or invest back into the business, or heck, even take that vacation you wanted to. Now I get it. When you hear those people throwing out the numbers like 30 or even 50%, it could feel like you're just undercharging. But the reality is that they, again, are probably talking about gross profit, which doesn't include all that overhead and all those other things, paying yourself and the software and all those things coming on. So if you follow that advice without understanding your true costs, your true expenses and everything, you could be setting yourself up for a really, really bad time. And you probably won't make it in business if you keep doing that.
We want to take a quick second to tell you about our friends over at Cycle CPA. I can't even express to you how important it is to have a good accountant on your side. You know you want accurate bookkeeping and financial statements every month. Instead, you're often left with limited time to focus on the accounting side of your business and no reports to show for it. At Cycle CPA, the landscaping accountants, they not only handle the bookkeeping, but also provide landscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA has a team of landscaping accountants available to provide anything from bookkeeping to CFO services. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $100 off, mention the $1 Million Landscaper podcast.
Are you tired of those spam calls about your online presence and website? I know you're nodding your head right now. Finding a company that knows the details about the lawn and landscape industry can be difficult. Well, I have a solution for you. Let me introduce you to Green Frog Web Design. We all know growing your business in our digital age requires an effective online presence, a website geared towards bringing in new customers. With fierce competition and a never-ending line of chucking the trucks ready to take your place, DIYing your online presence is not a serious option for growing businesses. Find a trustworthy and effective solution with Green Frog Web Design. Oh, and by the way, the first month for a new website is $1. Link is in the bio.
So here's something I also want to kind of really talk about. Just because someone else is telling you what they're charging online specifically too, it doesn't mean that, I guess it could be in person too, but it doesn't mean that they actually understand their numbers. We see this a lot of times online in the Facebook group. People are posting and that they're doing 50% profit on their job. Well, are they? Are they not? Or are they just looking at that gross number without factoring all the overhead? They could be saying they're making 50% gross profit, but if their overhead is crazy high and they're not tracking all that stuff, they may not have that net profit at the end. They could be in that low 2 to 4% net profit that we see a lot of times in this industry, which is terrible. You can't do anything with 2 to 4% net profit. That's crap. It doesn't allow you to do anything. So the biggest thing I want you to understand before you go make any changes in your pricing, start thinking of what you're doing right now. Are you doing anything wrong? Make sure you understand your numbers, because at the end of the day, you got to do what works for your business and not what someone else says online. And again, it's easy to get caught up in all that noise and all that garbage that's out there. But one thing that I've learned over the years of doing this, what might work for someone else might not work for you. Their costs, it's their overhead, it's their market, everything could be different. So how do you avoid, falling into this trap? The answer is simple again. You've got to know your numbers. I know it's not the most exciting part of running this landscape business that you dreamt of, but it is one of the most important things. I can guarantee that when you start actually sitting down and going through your numbers and start applying those changes and start charging what you need to be charging, not just even what you're worth, but what you have to charge minimum, that is going to turn your business around. And the best thing I can recommend is start by tracking everything in your business. What your materials are, your labor costs, your overhead, every little thing. This is going to help you give that better, clearer picture of what's going on, what's going in and out of your business. And then you can confidently set your prices and hit that 15% profit goal that we want. And if you guys are struggling with this, don't worry, you're not alone. We did the exact same things. We did the standard things of basically doubling or taking our materials multiplied by 2 or 2.1, 2.3, whatever. I remember doing those stupid numbers like that. And it just made things very difficult. Again, we're just guessing and going off what others had told us. And I want you to understand that you can change this. So if you set your goal of reaching $75,000 a year or $100,000 a year, whatever it is, and you're not obtaining that, you're probably not pricing your work accordingly. And now you can't be ridiculous with this. You can't set, your goal of making $150,000 in revenue, but have your business pay you $100,000. It's not realistic. Even $75,000, if you're only making $150,000 a year, in revenue. You have to be realistic on some of these things, but you can pay yourself a livable salary in this field. It's very easy to do, but you have to price your work properly. And if you guys need any help with this, we have a couple different programs. Feel free to reach out to us. We have our landscape pricing calculator. We have our, which is for beginners, really up to like a business of $500,000. If you're over the $500,000, we have another program called the Profits Up Estimating Program, where we take a deep dive in all this stuff. So if you guys need any help with this, feel free to reach out to us. My email is Scott, SCOTT, at milliondollarlandscaper.com. You can always post a comment down below and we'll get back to you. All right, guys, again, just couple key takeaways here. Make sure you understand the difference between gross profit and net profit. That is a huge difference. Don't get caught up on what people are saying online, and make sure you understand your numbers. That is the biggest thing I will say time and time again. So if you guys need any help with this, feel free to reach out to us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great one.